Welcome to Unleash Your Inspired Voice, the podcast that focuses on developing a more conscious-minded, heart-centered approach to life and business. And now here to introduce today's special guest is the host of Unleash Your Inspired Voice, author, content strategist, and Unity Consciousness activist, Peter Clark Nelson.
Hi, my name is Peter Clark Nelson, your host for Unleash Your Inspired Voice. Our guest for today's show is Jeff Cloud. Jeff's a dear friend of mine and someone who's had a huge influence on me, and it's a real honor to have him on the show. In this episode, Jeff and I are going to talk about why consciousness is the only game in town. Along with being the author of the groundbreaking book, Waking Up in the Dream, Jeff is a self-mastery mentor and practitioner of Toltec and shamanic traditions. Having healed many deeply rooted traumas in his own life, including the passing of his father when Jeff was only 7 years old, Jeff's proven and safe process for guiding people back into wholeness quickly gets to the root of an issue. Since early 2017, Jeff has served as the lead coach for the Powerful Man Group, which is one of the world's foremost coaching programs for conscious men. He is also the creator behind the Mastery of Awareness Deep Immersion course for women and men. And just recently, he launched 2 podcasts on the Soulology One global network called Waking Up in the Dream and Going Deeper. Jeff is also an accomplished musician and artist who has worked with some of the biggest names in entertainment. His high vibrational, multidimensional art is created by painting with lasers, lights, and sound plates to create a one-of-a-kind photographic print. Having spent time connecting with Jeff over the past 18 months and also reading his book, Waking Up in the Dream, I can personally attest to the powerful, inspiring, and practical application of his insights and wisdom when it comes to scaling your consciousness and scaling your business. But don't take my word for it. Let's connect with the man himself on what is surely going to be one of the most transformational and conscious, expansive conversations you will ever hear. Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Peter Clark Nelson, and I want to welcome you to another episode of the podcast, Unleash Your Inspired Voice. This is the podcast that teaches you how to scale your consciousness while scaling your business. And I got to say something, I'm really excited about the guest that I've got on this episode. He's not only a dear friend of mine, but he's the author of the book, Waking Up in the Dream, Mr. Jeff Cloud. Jeff, thank you so much for being a part of this episode.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. For those that may not know a lot about Peter, this guy is one of the most heart-centered, wise, integrous men that I know on the planet. I'm great to call him a friend, and I'm super excited for the amazing program that we've created that we're going to be launching a little bit later in the next couple months. Just an honor to be here. Thank you so much. I'm excited.
Oh, thank you very much, Jeff. And it's an honor for me to have you on here. You know, for people who are watching the podcast, Unleash Your Inspired Voice, I'm sure you probably already know a lot of the people that I have on my show are really close friends of mine. And I say that they're close friends of mine because what I do with this program is I bring on individuals who are heart-centered, conscious-minded entrepreneurs, but particularly people who walk their talk and have a journey and an experience that they're willing to share openly about. And I think, you know, this is not just about how do you do this or that in your business to be successful. This is about scaling your consciousness, again, as much as it is scaling a business. And that takes balance. That takes people willing to go into something we're going to talk about today, which is the wound. And before we get into wounds and how to dive into them and unearth the treasures and the lessons that are there, one of the things I want to do real quickly, though, is have Jeff, I want you to talk a little bit about just where you are with your inspired message. You know, people tuning in heard your bio before we came on, and, you know, you've got such an incredible journey. I mean, you've been a professional musician playing in front of 20,000 people. You've worked with some of the biggest names in the entertainment industry, and you've walked alongside some of the biggest names in the spiritual community like Dona, Miguel, Ruiz. And I personally, you know, I see you as one of the premier heart-centered leaders of the modern age because of what you're willing to speak about and how deep you're willing to go with the people you work with. I mean, you know, it's one thing to talk about spiritual concepts. It's one thing to say, I'm coaching individuals and I've got this business or I wrote a book, but man, you are walking your talk at a level that I've rarely seen people do. And for those who are listening to this podcast, the reason I'm saying things at the level that I am right now about Jeff is for the last year and a half, Jeff and I have had literally hours upon hours of conversations. As Jeff mentioned, we have an upcoming course called Your Big Breakthrough, which is launching later in 2018. But beyond just the development that Jeff and I have had with this course is how much he's helped me in my own journey. And so without further ado, Jeff, talk to us a little bit about your inspired message and the kind of work you're doing and the people you're working with.
Thank you so much. What a powerful reflection. I'm so honored, and the feeling is mutual. Yeah, we get to go deep. We get to have fun. We get to go into this deep, messy stuff, and that's really the key. A little bit of background on what I'm doing right now. I'm a lead coach for a group called The Powerful Man. I currently coach men in 5 different countries, mainly English-speaking countries, because I'm a white boy from California. I also have a Mastery of Awareness program, which is a 6-week deep immersion dive. And when I use the word deep, I'm not just using it. We go deep. And the bottom line is I've spent tens of thousands of dollars on my journey over the past 20 plus years. I've been in a lot of programs. I've traveled and done power journeys with Miguel Ruiz. We've been to the pyramids. We've been to Peru, Machu Picchu, all around the country, many other places. And reading a book is great. However, information can trick the ego sometimes. Like a lot of people in the spiritual community are donning their, I'm love and light and I'm this and that and everything else. And that's great because they're attracted to it. And that's step one. But where the real work comes in, with every single person that I've ever worked with, bar none, there is an underlying wound that most of them are not aware of. People know if they're not living up to their potential. They know if they have fear. They know if they have unworthiness. They know if something happened to them, like it did to me in my childhood, And what ends up happening is people end up putting such a protection around these wounds that we go through life putting on our best mask. And like the men that I work with, they're successful entrepreneurs, millionaires, private coaches, training facilities, anything you can think of, and they've sacrificed everything else in their life, their relationships, their children, their health, because they've been taught to push, be a man, man up, beast mode. It's the total opposite of what I do, because being in alignment and balance is where it's at. If you push, if you're in competition with anybody, you're in your ego. There is no competition. You are a unique individual that's brilliant, unlimited sovereign being, and there's nobody that can touch you when you get balanced and speak your truth from a place of love, passion, and vulnerability. So when people come to work with me, I know what's going to happen already because I do it almost every day of the week. They don't know. The beauty of it is they have the courage to step up and go, I resonate with some of the things I've seen in your videos or your book or whatever. I want to know more. Then we get on a call or they go to my website, thesourceoftruth.com. And within 15 minutes to a half hour, I know how to go in and take them to that place where that wound is, even when most of the time they're not aware of what it actually is. And I just want to do a quick disclaimer here. I'm not a healer. I may be of myself, but I don't claim I'm not going to heal anybody. I'm going to use my 3 decades of going very, very deep in my own life with Don Miguel Ruiz and the other people I've studied and worked with. And there is a system that can identify that very quickly for those that are willing to show up. The massive benefit is it changes every single thing in every area of your life. Self, health, wealth, relationships, and business. They're all tied in. So that's my short version of what I do.
That's incredible, man. I love it. Just the passion. I mean, people watching this and listening to this podcast, if you're not feeling the passion that Jeff is bringing, you might want to check your pulse. I mean, this is the thing with Jeff, and what I love about you so much, man, is that you bring it every single time. And I think you used a term earlier, beast mode, and that's a term that's used a lot in sports. I've heard it used by other people as well in the business world. the beast mode that you go with, like the level of passion and excitement and enthusiasm you bring, it's coming from your heart. There's not some there's not an egotistical competitiveness, where I'm going to try to outdo somebody else. You're coming at it from a level where you're so passionate about what you do because you're loving what you do and you're doing what you love. And it's about helping other people, as you said earlier, get to that wound. Okay. And that wound has layers to it. And most of the time, people don't even realize that the wound is driving the vehicle that they're in called life. And so, usually at this point in the podcast, I ask my guests to sort of, retrace the steps in the journey that they've been on and how they got to where they are today. And we're definitely going to do that. But I want to actually preempt that here. I want to jump into really the elephant in the room, which is the wound. And if you can, talk to us a little bit about the process that you work with people on, and then specifically, what is it about the wound that individuals are not aware of that they need to be much more consciously aware of?
Okay, great question. In the two programs, The Powerful Man and The Mastery of Awareness, people are attracted to either the book or the deep work that they're doing. People want to be successful. They want to be balanced in their life. They want to be happy in all areas. What's really interesting is, like I said earlier, they don't know what the wound is, or they would have already gone in and healed it. So it's kind of like a sniper attack, where, in a loving way, where I already know where to go. It's just them showing up. All you have to do is show up. If you could have figured this out on your own, you would have already. That's why I've had my teachers that know how to get you there quicker. If I hadn't have met Miguel and gone through all the other things that I've done, power journeys, plant medicines, just all the stuff that I've done, I don't know where I'd be, because you have to be willing to say, I don't know how to get there if you don't know how to get there. And what I found is, I had a massive book collection like everybody else. Power and Owl, you name it. That was information, but it never gave me the tools to go into the wound on my own. And so this is the work that we get to do. And the beauty of it is, it's a 6-week program, but we go in and identify the wound on the very first call. And for me, the first call happens before the program even starts. So we have a massive jump start. And then from there, everything is momentum, and relief in a way, because, it's intense to go in and identify something that you don't know is there. There can be a lot of fear around it. The number one thing that I've done, I used to go to these 3-day dreaming weekends with Miguel, and started out with about 30 people, and then grew to about 100. And every time I went, I was afraid, every single time. And there were times when I didn't want to go because my stuff was coming up, man, big time fear. And I just forced myself to go. And every single time I went and just showed up, I walked out of there on cloud 10. And that's the key. Just show up and say, I know there's something underlying. I don't know what it is, but I'm willing to go there. That's all you have to do. And then boom, in an hour, less than hour call, we'll identify it. We'll start to clear it. Then we'll put pieces in place to hone your awareness. I have so many tools that work. I've used them over and over and over. And here's something interesting. One of the clients the person wasn't a client at first, and I did a video saying, I will go into that wound and find it. And this person was triggered big time, like, I don't have any wounds. Well, you could tell they did. They were just afraid because they don't want to admit, I don't know what's going on, so I need some help. What I did when I got on my journey, I just showed up and I said, I don't know what's going on. Here's what I'm facing. Here's the fear. Here's the shame. Here's the guilt. And I just want to lay it on the table and clear it. And that's all you have to do. It happens so much quicker than you think. It's just that there's this fear behind it. So all you have to do is show up and let it happen. It'll happen very quickly.
You're absolutely on point about that. I mean, you show up and opportunities open up. And I think that's, in terms of opportunities, when you show up with this kind of work, the wound opens up. And the wound has a message. There's a lot of messages there. And people don't want to listen to that because, again, they're fearful of what it means to let go of the wound. The wound has become their security blanket. But I got to tell you something from a personal experience, over the years of keeping my wounds at bay. Like I've been aware of my own personal wounds for a long time, but there got to a point where I could not run and hide from them anymore. And I had to admit to my own self that the wounds that I had been doing a lot of what I felt was deep work, there was still a hell of a lot more to go. And that security blanket was the albatross around my neck. It was fucking choking me, I'm all about the throat chakra and unleashing your inspired voice. Well, I got to say something, I am my first and most important client. I had to work on myself to unleash my inspired voice. And I, harken back over the last 20 years and I look at my journey and I say, okay, well, I was doing all these things that people say, well, you're successful. You're helping all people, open their businesses or build a new brand or whatever that may be that I was doing with my clients. The truth is I was absolutely miserable because I was running, ducking and jiving around my own wounds. And it wasn't until, I had a series of major wake-up calls, and then that took me on another 10-year journey. And I think what's something that's really great about what you're talking about that I want you to kind of go a little bit deeper on is the idea about it's the difference between reading a book, going to workshops, or hiring somebody to coach you through something, and then the reality of you getting out of your own way to actually do the work. And I think a lot of times people get enamored by, these inspirational quotes that go around social media, or they buy a bunch of books and they're like, man, I'm going to get to those books at some point, and they never fucking get to them. And so they have a shelf full of wisdom and knowledge, but they don't really have an idea of how to put it to use. And I think one of the things about your book, Waking Up in the Dream, that I love so much is that it gets right to the point. I've read several chapters multiple times. And it actually, and thank goodness it came at a divinely timed moment of my life a year ago when I was going through some of the most turbulent, emotionally trying times of my life. And our conversations, coupled with the wisdom in your book, played a pivotal role in me staying on that path. And so I'd like for you to, if you can, just talk a little bit about the book, but specifically why your book actually opens the doors and gives people a glimpse into their wounds so that they can really begin digging deep, and not just one of these things, a book or a message that sort of makes you feel good and then you just go about your way and you never really get anything done. So what is it about your book that you felt it was worth you taking the time to write and to share your inspired message?
Thank you for that very much.
Right.
I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
At first, I've never written a book before. I never even had an idea to write a book. Just 2 years ago, somewhere around there, I started waking up at 3 a.m. and just started downloading. After, working with Miguel and a lot of other people for, almost 17 years. Some people longer, but Miguel was my main guy that in that Toltec family that really got me to see the programs that we run and how we protect ourselves from being wounded or going back to that childhood wound ever again. That's where the entire freedom lies. It doesn't help to put more information, more books and stuff. I had a 200 plus book collection of all the best spiritual books, all of them, that all my friends have. And I still had the wounds. So the invitation really, and the key to freedom is to just go, if I don't know how to do it on my own, I'm going to find somebody that I trust, and I'm going to invest a little bit, at least in a call or two, to see what can be done to break through, basically in my own words, the things that I could not see. And so in the book, I did my best to not put any fluff in there at all. It really starts out with ownership, and you have to be willing to look at your stuff. You have to be. You can't go into a book halfway and only take what you want and go, oh, that feels really good. That's not getting to the root. This journey is a journey, for some reason, about meeting the wound that happened to all of us, and then being willing to do whatever it takes to break through it. The beauty of it is, I wrestled with it for 30 plus years. Once I finally said, okay, I surrender, and went to work with the right person, man, the realization's like, now I've got it to the point where I can do it on one call to shift everything in your life if you're willing to show up. And I'm not kidding. And I stake my whole reputation on that. And so then we move forward with choice into a 3-month program or 8-week program, or some people I work with for a year. But it's up to them, So what else would you like to know about that? I don't think I answered your question fully.
Well, no, you did. You started to, but I mean, you were kind of discussing some of the things with the book. And, there's 2 things that I took out of that book that I have utilized on almost a daily basis for myself. There's a lot of beautiful lessons, and, we're not going to sit here and go through all of them, because if people want to learn all of them, they can go buy your book. But the 2 biggest lessons that I took away from that is the 5 most important words that you can ever say to yourself. And I want you to talk about what those are. And then the importance of consciousness, particularly the fact that the way you say it is that consciousness is the only game in town. And if we understand that as individuals, that there is a game being played, you don't play a game without understanding the rules. And so this thing we call life, there's a game of life. And what is the most important aspect of it? Jeff, you talk about that in your book.
Okay, so I'll come back to conscious awareness is the only game in town. Or actually, I'll just jump on it. So many people are just running on what I call automatic reaction mode. We all have our beliefs that we got from different people. They were handed down. Some of them may have been handed down in our DNA from our parents or our past lives. I don't recall that, but I can certainly feel it in my body. So we are normally operating in a reaction response mode as opposed to growth mode. Growth mode comes when we start to really become aware of every single trigger and reaction that we have. And the easiest way to spot a trigger, to know it, you can feel it in your body. I can feel them like, sometimes it'll crush my stomach. It'll be in a knot. The adrenaline will rush through. Fear will come in. But every judgment is a trigger. It's a wound. So many people, we're projecting out there. All this is happening inside our head with chemical reactions. The illusion is very real. We're looking at a computer screen right now. I'm looking at you. If you really want to break it down into quantum physics and energy, this is all happening with chemical reactions in your mind. It's not out there. Out there is the mirror to what you're believing, what you've been programmed, the wounds that we have. And yes, there is a collective consciousness out there, such as the president, the things that are going on in the planet, the war in other countries. Yeah, but we can also affect that by what we choose to focus on. So the key to conscious awareness is, number 1, being willing to own your stuff. Every time you point the finger at somebody else, it's you. There really is nobody else. And this may sound like alien talk to people that are watching this, but I think our crowd is on a conscious level to where this will creep in. I'm not saying humans don't exist, but what I'm saying, it goes so much deeper than that. And that's why the external world has been able to have so much of a hold on us, because the people that are currently about ready to fall from power have been working the media, the school system, logos, all this stuff, it's been programming coming at us every single moment of the day. I unplugged from television probably 20 years ago. Yes, I'll still go watch a feel-good movie or something on consciousness, but there is so much programming going on. That's how they get you. It's the media. If you're watching, I'm just going to say it, if you're watching CNN or Fox or any of that, you're being brainwashed. I don't care how conscious you think you are, just the fact that that information you're allowing it to come in is lowering your vibration because that's what you're focusing on. Even if you think, oh, I can see it's war, I'm way above that. No, the fact that you're spending your time doing that, it's coming in, let alone the subliminal stuff that's coming at you that you may not even see. These programs are deep, and that's why they've been able to manipulate and control an entire society. So conscious awareness is the only game in town, because otherwise you're running other people's programs. Period.
Absolutely. And I love the way you talked about that. You're 100% right about when we're watching programs or anything in the world, let's just get really clear on something. We are consumers. And I don't mean consumers as in, let's go buy some clothes, let's go buy some food. That's an aspect of consumerism. We as human beings are consumers. We're consuming oxygen. We're consuming energy because we are energy. We're consuming food. We're consuming information. So as you said, I love the way you said this, that even if you believe, oh, I'm above all this, but I'm just going to watch it just to kind of hear about what the president's saying or watch this or that. If you're watching that just to sort of understand some of the patterns that are going on, okay, fine. That's one thing. If you're not aware of how the programming works, then that is essentially the same as looking at something in your drink and pour, okay, there's a bottle of water, clear, pure water, and right next to it is a vial of poison. You're like, that's poison, and you pour it in the water and you drink it. What do you think that's going to do to you? Just because you recognize that it's poison, you drink it, it's going to fucking kill you or send you to the hospital. And the thing is that we don't understand when we are watching these kinds of programs and we're consuming information, or we're dealing with commiserating, or we're running a business and we're worrying about our competitors and we're trying to look up to other people and emulate what these people are doing, and we don't even realize that we're just diluting our own message by trying to be like other people. At that point, we're missing the biggest key out of the whole thing, which goes back to one of the biggest, it's the two things I took away from your book. We're going to get to the 5 words here in a second. So for people that are watching this, I haven't forgotten and Jeff hasn't forgotten. But I want to get back to that consciousness is the only game in town. Okay, so I took that away from Jeff's book. But the thing that I'm using every single day, and Jeff is touching on this, is to be the watcher of your thoughts. Be aware of your thoughts. And Jeff talked a little bit about that in terms of triggers and being able to recognize where it's coming from. Most people, they get triggered, they feel it. I mean, let's face it, how do we not feel it? It's just that we've conditioned ourselves to avoid looking at it. So talk a little bit about that, and then I want to get back to the 5 words here, because that's really important. But
okay.
Talk about the watcher of the thoughts and how that works in respect to the wound and being triggered, and what we can do to actually move through that and have our massive breakthroughs.
Awesome. Great. When I met Don Miguel Ruiz in 2001, he was living in San Diego as well, which was just a total blessing. I became part of their family and have continued our relationship for 16, 17 years now. I've got to spend so much time around him. I was his personal recording engineer. We traveled to the pyramids, Machu Picchu, Peru, time and time again. And the one thing that I learned from Miguel was very early on to become the watcher of every single thought, reaction, contraction, and judgment. He described being in an abandoned movie theater where he's sitting in the middle row all by himself and life is playing out up on the screen. So when you can step back into what Miguel shared with us as the second attention, become the watcher of your thoughts, emotions, and reactions. Most people are running on autopilot. If something does not match up with their current belief system, and just a little tidbit. In the middle of the word belief, the middle of the word is L-I-E. It doesn't mean that every one of your beliefs is a lie, but for many people, it's a trap. Because anything that you hold on to that is not of love, unconditional love, or knowing that you are a sovereign, unlimited being created in the Creator's image is limited. I don't care what it is. When I started going through every single belief that I had, I only kept two. And that is, love is the answer in every case. And the first one is, I am an unlimited sovereign being. Everything else I got rid of, all the fears, doubts. I constantly work on that and watch that every day. So, I'm trying to come back to that one point you had before I go into the 5 magic words. Basically, Miguel taught us to watch from the second attention, to notice when we contract and get triggered or we want to judge something outside of ourselves. Because it's a mirror for what's going on inside. So when you become the watcher of your reactions, instead of automatically just reacting and projecting, you go within and you go, oh, I just got triggered. That is the key to go in and heal that or fix it. It's not to project it out there because it's happening in here. This is one of the key realizations that anybody can have on the path to basically own their stuff. So many people are pointing out there is the problem. It's not. It's 180 degrees illusion trickery. When we go in and we're willing to accept 100% responsibility for every single thing, good or bad, especially bad. Doesn't mean we're out there bombing other countries and stuff. Again, that's the collective. But when we start to accept responsibility for our own thoughts, judgments, and projections, and take a look at it and go, ooh, every judgment is about you. This is a tough one for people to get. No, it's not. It's the government. No, every judgment, just entertain this, people, please. It's a game changer. Every judgment and every trigger is about you. Unless somebody is physically assaulting you in the room right now, then get away. Every other trigger, less than thought, unworthiness, or fear is about you. There's a gift there. And so this ties into the 5 magic words that are in the book. Because instead of projecting, I don't like this out there. You're doing this to me. That's wrong. Everything's wrong out there. Out there is a reflection of in here. So the 5 most powerful words are, what is the gift here? If you start asking yourself that every single time you have a judgment, every single time you're triggered, it'll change everything in your life, because now you're taking ownership as a sovereign, unlimited being on this journey. And that is so powerful. Just that one tool of ownership. Catch yourself when you want to respond. Yeah, but catch yourself when you get triggered. And it's going to be very subtle in the beginning. I journal things at night, or I have my students journal. Well, I do it too, but I still have my students journal as soon as I start working with them. Every single doubt, fear, judgment, and less than thought that they have. It's a total game changer, because those are the thoughts that are keeping you down. Those are the thoughts that are keeping you in fear. Those are the thoughts that are making you project your anger out there, when there really is no out there, people, if you really want to break it down. So this is really, really powerful stuff. And my little book is turning out to be, it's just starting to blow up. And I almost wasn't going to write it, because my judge told me that this has already been put out there. This isn't anything new. It's all, what are the people in my, crowd going to think when I step out and go, I got something to share? It's called ownership, people, without ego. If you're coming from your heart and you have something to share with people with no hidden agenda, then that's the way to roll. It's very powerful. So
that's absolutely. That's when you become a true sovereign being in your own consciousness, where you are absolutely unilaterally owning everything about you. Everything. And I love what you said, Jeff, about what was originally keeping you from writing this book. And I want to say this to everybody that's listening to this podcast, because again, I go back to, what is this podcast about? Scaling your consciousness while scaling your business. And a lot of the work that I personally do with people as an intuitive ghostwriter and a content advisor is working with people to craft their message. And over the last 20 years, one of the most consistent things I have heard from people when it comes to sharing their message, be it in a book, an article, and even a business, is, well, there's already a lot of books out there about the subject. Or, well, there's already people talking about this and doing videos. And here's the big one. I don't really have anything new to offer because it's already been said. Well, of course it's already been said, billions of times. But here's the thing that you cannot duplicate. You are a unique being. Yes, we are operating on a lot of commonalities. Yes, we're all part of one source. Yet what makes us who we are is the differences between us. And your journey, my journey, everybody's journey is uniquely our own. So the experiences we've had allow us to actually take some of the wisdom that we've gleaned from other people, from other teachers and other books, and we were able to impart that upon the world. And this is where it comes into unleashing your inspired voice, and why this is the single most important thing you can do when it comes to sharing your message. You let other people know that they're not alone. When people hear a message or they hear about a person's journey, what that does is it allows people to actually realize, I'm not suffering in isolation anymore, nor do I have to be worried about succeeding in obscurity. And just think about all the people that would have not been able to grow or learn about, the importance of watching your thoughts, or, the 5 magic words. Like, I look at it from my own self. Like, it's hard for me to look back over the last 18 months and think about, where would I have been? Where would I be if you and I hadn't crossed paths? So, for the people who don't know the story, Jeff was following a lot of my work on social media, and then I was following his. And so we were just admirers of one another. And, one of these days, one day Jeff says, hey, let's connect and talk about a collaboration. And I was just not in the mindset to collaborate with anybody. So I was sort of hesitant. I'm just like, oh, hey, thanks a lot, Jeff. I appreciate it. We'll connect at some point. And Jeff was persistent. And eventually I had to take a step back out of my own shit, right? And I had to watch my thoughts. I'm like, this dude's triggering me, but in a good way. Why is it that I'm resisting an overture when I already know that this man is walking his talk? This is a genuine being who truly is doing good work in the world. What do I have to lose to get on a call with Jeff Cloud? And by getting on that call with you and beginning a dialogue, I not only was able to gain a truly close friend, but a mentor and somebody who was able to open my eyes and to open my heart to a new way of looking at my own wounds and to looking at my gifts. And again, if you hadn't have written the book, who's to say where you would have been on your journey? And a pretty good chance is you and I wouldn't have crossed paths. So I say this to everybody because when you're doubting yourself and you're telling yourself you shouldn't go and share your message, that actually is the invitation that you should go share your message, because that's your fear of freaking out. And it's freaking out because you're actually about to follow your path. So Jeff, as we wrap everything up, and I just wanted to add to all of that, because your journey, the fact that you've been able to do the things you've done and overcome so many different obstacles along the way, and you've gone from being a professional musician, which you still are, you're still doing music, but you're now living your purpose at a level that you probably never even imagined you would have been years ago. So when you look at your journey, what is a couple of the lessons that you've been able to glean from your own journey that you could share with the listeners of the show?
Thank you for the kind words, first of all. Really honored. And
very welcome.
Yeah, really touched to have this connection with you and be on the journey and have all the incredible talks we've done, and then to be able to be putting together your big breakthrough program is amazing. So for me, the number one key to coming home to yourself is this: being willing to look at your stuff. What is your stuff? Your stuff is every judgment, every fearful thought, every less than thought, every time you project on another and judge them, every time you judge out there, you're being triggered by your own wounds and your own, this is not a put down, but it's our lack of remembering our sovereign divinity and why we came here. And because the system had been taken over by the 1% or whatever, we came in as these unlimited babies with these huge eyes of wonder. And then we start getting pummeled with other people's programs, fears, doubts, schools. I went to Catholic school. I was getting slammed on the wrist, assaulted by 80-year-old nuns that were truly some of the most unhappy people I've ever met, because they figured out they gave away their whole life for a lie. I'm not knocking anybody. I'm not knocking love, but the religions of the world are pretty much heavy, heavy programming. And that's for another conversation. I prefer to keep it positive. But yeah, the main thing is, are you willing to look at your stuff instead of projecting the reason for your unhappiness on the economy, on other people, why you can't step in? There's a voice inside of you. There's a passion that you have. There's a little message that keeps coming up. You may have squashed it entirely by now, and you're just going to work, doing a job that you may not like because you want to have the house and the car. My invitation is, are you willing to do that for the rest of your life and not step into your passion and purpose? Because I hate to put it like this, and it does. I'm not saying being a good parent or raising a kid, whatever you're doing is perfect right now. The invitation is to step into your next level and really find what your passion and purpose is. You came here with a unique individual gift and a way of saying things that nobody else has. And you stepped into a system of control, of brainwashing in the school system. We're changing all that, but it's probably going to take another decade or two. But you're here to change the game because it's your game. You're the main player in your dream. Don't let other people tell you what you're supposed to do or how to do it. Come from love, follow your passion, and listen to that inspired, even if it's the tiniest voice. Well, I always wanted to do this, but the but is a lie. The but is a lie. It is programming from society. We are all artists. We were not meant to have to work 40, 60, 80 hours a week to have a house and a car and survive. We're meant to thrive. And the way that we thrive is we follow our heart and our passion, and we align with other people and create these communities moving forward where we're supported, where people see us, where it's safe to be who we are and to shine. So that's the invitation. And those are the people that I love to work with. Yeah, you can be scared to death, but we'll go in and bust that stuff very, very quickly. And that's a promise. So I just love the questions, man. You're such a tuned in guy. And your gift as well is to be able to share where you were. Anybody can come out and go, I'm the greatest coach in the world. That doesn't mean anything to somebody that's living their life in fear and creating spiraling patterns every day because of their conditioning and their wounds. But the great news is these wounds can be unearthed on one phone call. I kid you not. Doesn't mean they're going to be erased. The memory's always going to be there. But moving forward, it's going to empower you at a very quick rate. What people accomplish in just 6 short weeks is nothing short of amazing. It completely changes everything in their life. And all they have to do is be willing to step up and go, I don't know what I don't know, but I resonate with your message. And I'm like, boom, let's do it. That's all you have to do is accept the invitation and reach out. It's a total game changer.
That it is. Well, on that note, I want to thank you for accepting the invitation to be on the podcast, Unleash Your Inspired Voice. And for everybody listening, I want to thank you for accepting the invitation to join us on this podcast and to participate in this exchange of energy. I understand we're not doing this live, so there's no questions being fielded right now, but this is an exchange of energy. Everything is energy, and energy is everything. So this is an opportunity for us to continue to grow together as a community and to be able to continue to not just scale our consciousness and scale our business, because what does that really mean? At the end of the day, what it means is that you are playing a pivotal role in the awakening and the scaling of consciousness for humanity. Whatever it is that you're doing, you don't have to have a business to glean information of value from what Jeff is talking about or what any of my guests talk about. So there is another level, there's another step. And what I want to do right now is I want to ask Jeff if you can just share, where can people find more information about your book, about your mastery program? Where would they want to go to really kind of take things to the next level and continue this conversation with you?
Thank you for that. The website is thesourceoftruth, all one word.com. On Facebook, I'm facebook.com/Jeff9Cloud. And I just want to make this offer for people specifically that are on this call and are friends of yours. I'm going to do a half-price special for a breakthrough wound removal call. And instead of just one call, I'm going to make it 2 calls, because on the first call, which I'm going to spend an hour and a half to 2 hours with you, and we're going to go in and we're going to identify the wound, plain and simple, done, deal. I've never been on a call with anybody where we weren't able to go in and identify the wound. I know how to get there. So I'm going to do a half-price special for $222. Then a week later, I'm going to follow up with you on another call. This is another bonus just for you guys here for showing up. And then we're going to map out your plan moving forward. If you want to continue from there, great. I'm not a sales pitch guy, but this is a total game changer. I take this work very seriously, and this is an offer just for the people that watch this. So if you want to reach out, you can actually go to my website, thesourceoftruth.com, and there is a drop-down menu where you can order the 2-call breakthrough, wound removal session. And I know that sounds intense, wound removal, but really that's what it is. I mean, that's what it is. It's been a belief or a wound that we took on that has kept us not fully expressing our gifts that we came here. So please investigate this, people. It is an absolute life-changing game changer. And I guarantee that. So
that's awesome. You're very welcome. That's an incredible offer. And one of the things, it's in terms of continuing this conversation, I do invite everybody to go to Jeff's site. If you're on Facebook, go to his personal profile, send him a friend request, connect, and look at the stuff that he's sharing on his wall. With that said, Jeff, I just want to say thank you with all my heart and soul for being a part of this podcast. This is just the beginning of a conversation that is going to continue, because I'm going to have you back on the podcast again. You and I have already talked about that. And I'm looking forward to the upcoming conversations. And I trust that everybody listening to this got something incredible out of it. Thank you again for being a part of it. And I want to wish everybody a magical day. Please go out and unleash your inspired voice. Let the world hear your message, because the world needs what you are having to say now more than ever. Thank you, and I look forward to seeing and hearing everybody on the next podcast of Unleash Your Inspired Voice. To learn more about Jeff Cloud, be sure to visit thesourceoftruth.com. You can also follow Jeff's inspiring posts, articles, and videos on social media at facebook.com/Jeff9Cloud. And that's the number 9. So Jeff9Cloud at Facebook. And as you just heard Jeff offer listeners at the end of our interview, he's taking 50% off the cost of 2 breakthrough wound removal coaching sessions when you mention the Unleash Your Inspired Voice podcast. So if you're ready to heal an inner wound that's been keeping you from expressing your gifts and talents, There are a few people who are as effective at doing this than Jeff. And please be sure to visit unleashyourinspiredvoice.com and sign up for the bonus material if you haven't already done so. When you sign up, you will gain access to bonus videos and downloadable material offered by many of our guests. As always, thank you for joining us on Unleash Your Inspired Voice.